professionals to fight your claim.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Monday. Means we're brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Fired up. You're starting your work week out with us. Lots and lots to do. A successful football weekend here in South Louisiana. LSU does beat Nichols. I don't know if it was a work of art, but they got to the finish line and won the game. And the Saints absolutely rolled the Carolina Panthers in what was nearly a flawless performance yesterday. We'll talk about all of that. We'll go through my picks against the spread in the SEC. Some injury updates from Brian Kelly today. So plenty to get to here on this Monday. Again, hope your work week is off to a good start. Tigers win it back on Saturday, 44-21 in the home opener. Some good stuff, some not so good stuff. I'll start with some of the stuff that I really liked, and then we'll get into some of the stuff that I didn't like as much. I felt like my column after the game was a little bit negatively slanted, but that's kind of what you get when you let Nichols hang around into the third quarter. Like that just shouldn't happen, and it did, but LSU did salt the game away and was able to win it 44-21, as I mentioned. I thought Garrett Nussmeier really looked good. I think he looks comfortable back there. I think he's got plenty of arm talent. I think he's completing a lot of balls at a lot of different areas of the field to a lot of different players. I'm a little bit concerned with the backpedaling, but in doing that, he's being very patient and he's getting the ball out of his hands, and he's been very, very accurate in this game. 27 out of 37 for 302 yards and 6 touchdowns. Of course, the 6 touchdowns, the second most ever in a game. He joins two guys by the name of Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels as quarterbacks to throw for 6 touchdowns in a single game at LSU. You keep that company, you're doing things pretty well. He did not throw an interception. He has only thrown 1 interception through 2 games on the year, and that was, of course, the last play that LSU ran on offense against Southern Cal, where they were trying to run a 30 lateral play at the end of the game to score touchdowns. So in actual functional game snaps, Garrett Nussmeier has not really put the ball in harm's way at all. He's been efficient. He's been effective. And LSU's passing game is very good. And that's a good thing, obviously, but it has to be because they're just not able to create consistent push running the football. And we don't have the sound that Brian Kelly gave today. I'll paraphrase, and then we'll probably play some for you tomorrow, and certainly Matt will later on his show today. But basically, Brian Kelly came in and said today, like, I'm not concerned, and trust me, I'm paraphrasing this. These are not direct quotes. He said, I'm not really concerned with our inability to run the football. This is all a function of the way teams are defending us. They are putting a lot of players in the box. They are stacking the front, and they are daring us to throw with a lot of cover one, and we're going to take advantage of that matchup. We got good wide receivers. We've got good tight ends. We've got a good quarterback. We pass block really well. We're going to test you on the edge, and it's hard to disagree a ton with Brian Kelly because they are moving the football consistently. Like they are moving the ball a lot. They moved the ball for a ton of yards against Nichols. And they moved the ball for a ton of yards against USC. Now, they didn't get into the end zone as much as you'd like to see against USC, and they've got to figure that out. But he's saying that they're not struggling to run the ball because they can't get a push. They're struggling to run the ball because they're calling more pass plays based on what the defense is giving you. Kelly went as far to say that, I guarantee you if South Carolina comes out and goes 3 down linemen and plays a bunch of cover 2, we're going to run the football. And I hope he's right. But as I look at LSU right now, I look at a team that is struggling to create any sort of momentum up front, and I don't think that's just a function of all 8-man boxes. I'm not going to go back and check every single snap and count the players in the box, but it doesn't feel like teams are playing LSU the way they played them in the early Les Miles era. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like when LSU calls a run play, they don't really get much push. And you've got a situation where you run the football 21 times against Nichols. 19 of those were, I would say 18 of those were probably called runs, and that is light. You've got Ricky Collins ran it twice, and Garrett Nussmeier ran it twice, so you've got 17 or 18 of those that were called runs. And your long against Nichols was 12 yards. Like, how many times have we watched LSU play non-conference opponents in that game? You always bust some runs because you're bigger and faster and stronger, and LSU wasn't able to do that. Caleb Jackson had 9 carries for 19 yards. He had 1 for 9, and then the other 8 carries went for 10 yards. That's just not an acceptable output to me. And Caleb Jackson is built for that old-fashioned Les Miles offense where you get him the ball moving downhill, you give him a little bit of a hole, and all of a sudden he gets that momentum up, and he can bowl over people and run away from some people. Well, he's never able to get any momentum going because he gets hit in the backfield on every run. Like, that's just his math. If he had 8 runs for 10 yards, you're quite literally never getting 2 yards down the field. So we can't create that momentum and establish that running game. I understand what Brian Kelly is saying. You've got 4 quarterback runs, so that means we're talking about 44 pass calls to 17 runs. Like, that part makes sense because you're looking at the number saying, okay, they are throwing it a lot more. But I don't care if you run it 35 times or 18 times. What's the average yards per carry? And LSU is not establishing any sort of run game. They averaged 3 yards per attempt on Nichols. In one of their 12-yard runs, there were 2 of them, was Garrett Nussmeier on a called pass. So the run game to me is just completely ineffective, and that is a significant problem. Now, the flip of that is it appears that LSU's kind of got an identity, and the identity is that you're going to be a really good passing team that struggles to sustain a ground game. You're going to be, and I use air quotes here, a finesse offense. Now, finesse offenses can score a lot of points. Like, you can throw it around and pile up points. Mike Leach piled up a bunch of points. He just did, and that is a finesse offense. You can win games as a finesse team. You can't win championships as a finesse team because if you don't establish a run of some sort, you're not going to be a championship caliber team. And so right now, I think it's clear to everyone that LSU's not exactly a championship caliber team. They lost to USC, and they were up 2 points on Nichols in the third quarter. But I do believe they can be an effective offense leaning on the pass game significantly more than running, and they just got to get better running the football. As far as the defense goes in this game, I just thought it was a bad effort. I mean, just a bad effort. You force the punt that they snap over the punter's head in the first drive, and then you allow Nichols to just embark on these long scoring drives. They go 84 yards on 13 plays for a touchdown. They get the ball right back. They go 75 yards on 13 plays for a touchdown. They weren't really trying to do anything at the end of the half. They tried to run the ball, and LSU did stop them there, so they punted right there. But then they got the ball to start the third quarter, and they went 75 more yards, and almost all of it was on the one run right up the gut of the LSU defense. Like, Nichols did not have an incompletion in the first half. Not a single incompletion. And then they were running the ball effectively. Like, you weren't taking anything away from Nichols. And that's really concerning to me. I thought LSU's defensive backs against USC were competitive. It wasn't great. Miller Moss threw for a lot of yards, and USC moved the ball. But they did get their hands on some passes. They did knock the ball away a few times. They seemed to be present against USC. Nichols kind of got whatever they wanted. And it wasn't just the defensive backs that weren't making plays on the ball. The front wasn't making plays in the backfield against Nichols. Nichols ran the football, turned it around and handed it off, or quarterback ran it 38 times in this game. You know how many tackles for loss LSU had on 38 running plays? Two. You got to think that LSU could get back there, be a little bit more disruptive than that on the running plays. I get you're not going to have a bunch of sacks in this game if you're LSU. Nichols was snapping the ball to McQuaid, and he was getting rid of it really quick. And plus, he only threw it 16 times, and they ran some trickeration passes. So there were 22 total pass attempts in the game for Nichols. But I'm not mad that they didn't have a lot of hurries or sacks. That wasn't going to be really possible in this game against Nichols. Nichols knew they were probably going to be overmatched at the point of attack, and they were going to have to do some quick game on the outside. But you would think on 38 running attempts that you would get in the backfield more than twice. And LSU did not. And that is a huge, huge concern at this point. I think LSU is pretty good in the pass rush game. I think LSU's really good in the passing game on offense. But when you start coming down into the trenches, I think LSU is in a little bit of trouble on the defensive tackle. We'll talk about in a second. And I think LSU is really struggling to run the ball despite what Brian Kelly has to say. So to me, all these ingredients kind of add up, and you're looking at a team, in my estimation, that is a finesse team. And that's a recipe for some real trouble against some of the teams you're going to see on this SEC schedule. I don't want to make too much about the Nicholls game. It's a weird deal. You're playing an FCS team. You're coming off a huge national spotlight opener that disappoints you. Brian Kelly said the team looked tired and didn't have quite the snap. And okay, fine, they didn't get home until 5 o'clock in the morning on Monday and then had to go to practice the next day. Like, I get all that. I as a side note, would suggest maybe don't schedule a trip to Ireland if your team's struggling to come home from Vegas. But that's a story for another day. I'm not going to make too much out of the Nicholls game. I'll make more about the South Carolina game and certainly pair that with the USC game from last week. But what I saw was a little bit discouraging outside of, man, LSU's passing game is good, and it's fun to watch, and I think it's going to be consistent and good all year long. Little bit nervous when Garrett Nussmeier went out at the end of the first half. Little bit nervous. But he came back in the game and had a really good night throwing the football. So LSU wins at 44-21. We'll have some more to talk about with this game as we move forward in our number one. Brian Kelly did meet with the media earlier today and did mention that Jacobian Guillory will be out for the season with a torn Achilles. Just a huge, huge blow to LSU. We'll talk about that injury, how LSU deals with it, some of the other injury reports that we got today. All that's coming up next, so don't go anywhere. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Look, if you just moved, you moved a few years ago, you locked in an awesome interest rate, you don't want to pick up and move again, like what you're paying and where you are, well, you can still upgrade that living situation with a brand new custom closet, a brand new customized bathroom. It starts with a free consultation and a questionnaire from David Duvall and his team. They go through some of the options that they have. You talk about pricing. If you need to work with some financing options, they've got those available for you. And then they're the only call you make. They handle it from the start to the finish. All of it is done by One Bath and Closets. You can see pictures of their fantastic work on their Instagram profile. You can go to onebathandclosets.com. You can find testimonials from their satisfied customers there as well, and click on that free consultation. Tell them the Hunt Palmer Show sent you to One Bath and Closets, and you can get $1,000 off of your project. It's David Duvall and his team at One Bath and Closets, onebathandclosets.com.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want it. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging event. And we're right there with you. Our mobile banking app is a smart way to manage your money and time. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Shout out to Trey Beal and the folks at Gulf Coast Office Products for bringing you our Monday shows each and every week. All your printing, scanning, copying needs, Gulf Coast Office Products. Check them out online, gcopnet.com, gcopnet.com. All right, Brian Kelly did confirm the report from yesterday that Jacobian Guillory is out for the season. Senior defensive tackle tore his Achilles in the first quarter against Nicholls State. Obviously came off the field, went into the injury tent. They put a boot on his foot, and then they wheeled him into the locker room for imaging. That imaging did reveal a tear of his Achilles, and he'll be done for the season. As I mentioned, this is just a devastating blow to LSU. Earlier on, before the season started on LouisianaSports.net, I did a station survey, which is a piece we run every single week where we ask kind of the entire staff to talk about the most indispensable player on LSU's roster. And for this purposes, I said, besides Garrett Nussmeier, obviously lose the starting quarterback, could be a real problem, but who's next? And you saw a few different answers. Mason Taylor got an answer. Will Campbell got a couple. But Jacobian Guillory was mentioned multiple times. And the reason is you just don't have proven depth at that position. You just don't. And not that Jacobian Guillory is an all-conference level player, but he's been at LSU for 5 years. He's logged significant SEC minutes, and he's big, strong, and old. And he gave you a veteran presence there that at least had functioned in the SEC. Gio Paez is moving from defensive end into defensive tackle. Paris Shand may do the same thing. Sean Washington has only played in junior college, really. He didn't do much in his 1 year at Athens at Georgia. Dominic McKinley and Ahmad Bro are true freshmen. Jalen Lee has been a career backup at Florida and LSU. All of these guys are very much unproven as SEC defensive tackles. Guillory was kind of the one pillar there, and now he's gone. And this is very, very concerning for LSU. I don't know if they're going to be able to recover from this in terms of the defensive front. Gio Paez has been okay for 2 weeks. He's been okay. He's held his own. He's not your classic 325-pound nose, but he can hold his own in there. And then opposite him, it's kind of a revolving door. You saw Sean Washington go in there early. You saw Ahmad Bro play a little bit late. And you're going to see, in my opinion, Jalen Lee and Dominic McKinley enter the game. Now, JVR Suggs, his name I did not mention in there, and he played a little bit. But if you look at the guys that came into the game after Jacobian Guillory came out, and you look at their grades on Pro Football Focus, it's a little bit concerning. You got JVR Suggs, who graded out 57.9. That's a bit of a problem. You've got a Sean Washington grade of 59.1. And this is against Nichols. Jalen Lee graded out under 50. This is the worst offensive line LSU's going to see all year. It's an FCS group, and you had guys at defensive tackle that were grading out very, very low. You put those guys in front of South Carolina, who's running the ball really well right now, in front of Ole Miss, who's not afraid to run the football. Alabama's offensive line is massive. I mean, you know the story. Like, this is a huge concern. Brian Kelly talked today, and again, we don't have that sound, but I'll kind of paraphrase for you what he had to say. Basically, like, Jacobian has his strengths. He's not a dynamic pass rusher, but he is big, strong, and physical in the middle. We can't necessarily try to just replace him. We've got to take the guys that we've got, figure out what they're good at, and then tailor things to them. I just don't know if you have another SEC quality defensive lineman. Like, I just don't. My assumption here, and this is a guess, is that Gio Paez will play one tackle, and you'll have a rotation opposite him that includes Sean Washington, Jalen Lee, and probably Paris Shand early. I think they'll probably move him in. He's only 275 pounds, but he's a fourth or fifth year dude. So those guys probably have to step up, and then we'll see how quickly they can get Dominic McKinley and Ahmad Bro ready to go. If you'll recall, entering the USC game, Brian Kelly was asked in a press conference, like, what freshman can you expect to play? And Ahmad Bro's name came up pretty quickly. So they felt he did something to earn his way to the field in fall camp, getting ready for his first season here in college. But as I look at this, I see a real weakness in LSU's defensive front. And it feels like teams are going to be able to win the point of attack consistently. I would be thrilled to be proven wrong, but you look at the rushing stats, and Nichols was able to run for 150 yards. I realize that 67 of them came on one run, but this is an FCS opponent. And USC didn't really commit much to the run. They like to throw it around a lot about there, and they did. But late in the game, when they wanted to run it, they were able to. So I'm not sure how you fix this. It's not, you can't go sign a free agent like the NFL. You've got who you've got, and they attempted to go out and get some more defensive tackles that were proven, but elected not to spend the money, quite frankly. I mean, you heard Brian Kelly say we're not in the business of buying players. LSU decided not to go out and pursue a couple of those defensive tackles that have ended up elsewhere. And now you look up and you've lost your most consistent player there, and you've got a bunch of guys who don't have a lot of skins on the wall. In fact, close to none. So this is as devastating a blow to a position group as you could have outside of losing Garrett Nussmeier. It is bad, bad news, and it's really unfortunate for Jacobian Guillory. I was kind of uplifted hearing him talk prior to the season. He talked about, being a leader on the team and growing up his whole life wanting to play for LSU and getting that opportunity. Why would he leave that behind to go try to chase a paycheck when he could play for LSU? And I thought he had a great camp. I thought he played awesome almost every time we were out there for practices. But one snap, and obviously his season is over. Brian Kelly said they're going to talk to Jacobian, talk to his family. He would qualify for a medical red shirt. He could come back next year if he elects to do that. Kind of hearing what he had to say before the season, it would lend me to believe that there's a real good chance that he would come back for next year. But you never know. He's been in college for a long time. He does have a degree, and you're not getting any younger for an opportunity to maybe make some real money playing football in the National Football League if he could make a roster. But then again, I think LSU would welcome him back in open arms because they're going to have to overhaul that defensive tackle group once again in the offseason, because right now it just doesn't look like a championship caliber team. Y'all know the defensive tackles that have been on great LSU teams. You go back to Lavallee and Dorsey, Kyle Williams, and Tyson Jackson, my guy Big Fave. Talk about Michael Brockers and Benny Logan on that 2011 team. And Tyler Shelvin had a great year for the 2019 team. This LSU position group right now does not look like that, and that's not telling you anything you don't already know. We knew that entering the season before Jacobian Guillory's Achilles snapped. But now, without him, it's hard to designate it as anything but a weakness. And they're going to have to mask that with some numbers. They're going to have to get a little bit creative with what they do up front. It may ask some people to do some things they weren't necessarily expecting to do as of 7 days ago. Maybe Paris Shan kicks down. Maybe Dominic McKinley gets more snaps. Maybe Sean Washington gets more snaps than he would have. Likely, those are the cases. I just, as I say that and I go through that and I look at what LSU is going to put out there defensive tackle, it is quite scary to think about facing SEC offensive lines week in and week out with that group of guys. But Bo Davis is a really good coach, and you don't just pack up your stuff and go home. You go practice, you go work, and try to get better, and that's what they'll try to do. So devastating news for Jacobian Guillory. If you missed it earlier, he did suffer a torn Achilles. Brian Kelly confirmed that today. He will miss the remainder of this 2024 season. LSU wins it 44-21. It was a win, but it wasn't necessarily super impressive. What was super impressive was the New Orleans Saints season opener against the Carolina Panthers. We will talk about that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is the website. Mitchell Fisher and his team spent the week last week out in Denver at a trade show, kind of looking at some of the cutting-edge technologies that are available, and they're right there on that cutting edge. They can do so much for you at your home with your audio system, with your video situation, your home entertainment situation, with your security as well. If you're a music fan, want to listen to some tunes, it's getting a little bit cooler, some really nice time to spend some time outside. If you want some tunes to be wired on your back porch, front porch, patio area, Audio Video Security Solutions is happy to help you with that, and all of it can be controlled right there with an app on your phone. It's fantastic. You can listen to songs, listen to us outdoors with all that new equipment that you can have installed very, very soon. If you call Mitchell Fisher and his team at 225-439-7920, 225-439-7920. The website is avssla.com. Their Instagram handle is avss_BR. Check it out. Look at some of the fantastic capabilities they've got. They could be at your home this week getting something done on the audio, video, or security side. Audio Video Security Solutions is the company here in Baton Rouge. The website, avssla.com.
It's an everyday thing here. We work horses in the mornings and we work on the property during the day, and without these John Deere tractors, it'd almost be impossible to keep up with the place. I've dealt with some of the other colors and stuff, and I never really got the response back that I get from John Deere, We really enjoy dealing with Sunshine. They're good people. They always check on us and make sure our equipment's running, and we love them. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by Sunshine at sunequip.com.
We're Rev Business, a local provider with nearly 90 years of experience. So when it comes to business in Louisiana, we know that personalized service is key. And we're here to go the extra mile with all fiber solutions that deliver what every business needs: reliability and quality. We're not just providers. We're the local team dedicated to helping you succeed. True partnerships are homegrown. Rev Business, internet, phone, managed services. Visit us at letsrev.biz.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. Breck, your #1 park system in the nation.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs. Even in the case of an after-hours emergency, the light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
I'll tell you, Beck, I did not see yesterday coming in the Dome.
No, I don't think many people did. I don't think anyone did, in fact, except for maybe the biggest of homers for the Saints.
I said on Friday, I gave my pick. I said I think the Saints will win, but I think Carolina will cover. I did not think the Saints would fare well against Jacobian Clowney and Derek Brown on the defensive front.
They were kind of non-factors.
They were very much non-factors, and I didn't think that Carolina would move the ball a ton against the Saints defense. That turned out to be true. But I thought that it was going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of a 20-17 game, and it was not. It was an absolute bloodbath from the start. Bang, right out of the gate, Derek Carr, post route, Shaheed, 6, and the Saints never slowed down on either side of the ball. It was a clinical performance by the Black and Gold in a game they absolutely needed to get off to a good start in. They just jumped up 17-0 in the first quarter and just never let up. It was sensational. The Saints were great on offense. They ran the ball exceptionally well, 180 yards on the ground, 37 carries on the ground. They got Kamara the ball 15 times. Jamal Williams got involved. They used Taysom Hill when they needed to. I thought all of that was fantastic. And the passing game was very, very crisp. It was Derek Carr's best performance as a member of the New Orleans Saints. The statistics weren't eye-popping from a yardage perspective, but it was the efficiency with which he worked. He was 19 of 23, 200 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns and no picks, only took the 1 sack. They did a good job getting the ball down the field vertically. They did a good job getting the ball out in the screen game and the intermediate game. They were just awesome start to finish. And there was a stat I saw on the internet that the Saints were near the bottom of the NFL in motion percentage last year. They were tops in the NFL in motion percentage in this game, and that's something we knew was coming. It's why after the preseason games, I looked up and said, I don't really care what the Saints offense does in these games, because it is very evident when we have the writers and reporters and TV folks on that we're out there in Irvine for camp, what they're doing in these games bears no resemblance to what they're doing in practice. They're not running their offense, so I don't really care. And they ran their offense on Sunday, and it was awesome. I don't think they can keep that up every week. That's probably easy to suggest, but it's very encouraging that they were able to do some more creative things, and they were able to do it very, very efficiently. Saw the big play to Shaheed for a 59-yard touchdown. Foster Morrow, his first touchdown in the Dome as a member of the Saints. They got Kamara 5 catches as well. Juwan Johnson got on the mic for a touchdown. They didn't even really use Chris Olave a ton in this game. He only had 2 catches, but they spread the ball around a ton, and it was awesome to watch offensively. The defense just suffocated Bryce Young, who might be terrible. I think probably is terrible. He was 13 out of 30 for 161 yards. He threw 2 picks. He was sacked 4 times. His QBR in the game was 10.7. His quarterback rating, which is the bigger number, was 32.8. He was atrocious in this game. I thought Chase Young looks phenomenal coming off the edge. The statistics won't bear it out because he didn't get credited with a bunch of sacks, but he was back there getting a lot of pressures. I think I saw 8 was the number of pressures that he got on Bryce Young. I thought the coverage was good. The Saints made plays on the ball. There's almost nothing you could nitpick in this game from a Saints perspective, and that is so rare in the NFL because even the bad teams have good players and can function, and they're going to get you here and there. Carolina had no answer on either side of the ball for New Orleans. It was an awesome, awesome sight to behold. Before I get into kind of my thoughts on how much of this is the Saints and how much of this is the Panthers, Beck, what did you think about the way that the Saints handled their business on Sunday?
It was, it was shocking and awesome to see. But a few things that I'll note, like you said, only 2 targets for Chris Olave. You're obviously going to need to target him a lot more than twice if you're going to win some really tough games that are going to be coming up in the next few weeks. And then one thing I'll say is that the defense needs to get a lot of credit, not only for holding the Panthers to 10 points, but they gave the Saints a short field a number of times.
Yeah.
And the offense really did not. Their offense had the first few drives, they had a couple of 75-yard drives. And then after that, a lot of the drives were less than 50 yards. Like they had the field goal that they didn't even get. They only got a few yards on, a couple other touchdowns, and then they had a good kickoff return that went pretty far. And so the offense itself, I think they had 379 yards, which is a lot. But still, the defense and the special teams were incredible. I think that's one thing. And Dwan Johnson blocked a punt, which was really cool. So I think even if you see this offense and say, okay, they're playing the Panthers, who have a respectable defense, and maybe you say, okay, the offense has to regress, which I agree with when you play against better teams. But at the same time, you can't take away the fact that the defense and the special teams, I think, will not go away. They're gonna play well against everyone, and that will also help the offense.
Groupie had a great preseason, but then I'm looking at this going, he had a great preseason last year, and then he got in the regular season games, and it was terrible. Well, he was great yesterday, 4 of 4, had a 57-yarder, was really, really good in the game. And you mentioned the kick returns. They had a couple of those by Shaheed and Jamal Williams. Both went over 30 yards, so that was good as well. I believe this is my summation. I think the Saints played great, and I think the Saints are probably a little bit better than what we anticipated.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't think it's out of the question to suggest that 9 or 10 wins is possible here, and I think a lot of people had them probably closer to 4 or 5. I said 9 and 8 on my preseason projections, but Carolina offensively is a grease fire. I mean,
it's terrible.
It is atrocious. Bryce Young looks terrible. He is inaccurate. He is indecisive. He runs for his life. He just looked awful. They could not get any ground game going whatsoever. Had 58 yards rushing on 20 carries with Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard. That's supposed to be their bread and butter as an offense. And so I think that this is, if I'm giving credit in a percentage and to the Saints and blame as percentage to Carolina, I think the Panthers' ineptitude on offense probably deserves like 35 or 40% of this, and the Saints defense gets 60, 65%. It's not going to look that good against Dallas this week.
No.
But I do think that if you're a Saints fan, you should feel very encouraged today that the offense did look transformative. There were significant differences. A healthy Derek Carr looked to be very, very efficient and comfortable, and you looked very good. And I think the defense is going to be elite. If the Saints are going to win the South, which is very possible. Atlanta did not look good. Tampa looked okay. And then Carolina's awful. If you're going to win the South, your defense needs to be in the top 5 or 6 in football. Like, they have to be great. And no one's expecting 47 points every week. Like, no one expects that. But the Saints are not going to average 36 points a game.
No.
They're a lot of times, I think, going to end up mid to high 20s. And that should be enough most weeks with that defense, and that's how you're gonna win games, I think. So I mean, I do think the Saints played great. I'm encouraged by that. I think they've got a chance in the South, but you do have to put the caveat on it. The Panthers are awful, and they're probably going to have to restart at quarterback again next year. I mean, I don't know how quickly you give up on Bryce Young, but if it looks more like this, like it did last year for another year, like I'll give you a bumpy first year, but you got to make serious strides in year 2. And he looks completely lost, which is wild to those of us who watched him in the SEC because he was so good at Alabama. He can't play at this level.
Yeah, it's hard to see a guy struggle like that. And I agree. I think he is not great. But at the same time, man, it's so hard to evaluate guys that are playing for horrible teams. The Panthers on offense are god-awful. The offensive line. Okay. It's to me, quarterback, especially rookie young quarterbacks, the situation is so it plays into it so much. I don't know that I agree that Bryce Young is a horrible quarterback. Like, it's not. Of course, there are always guys that are great in college and can't translate to the NFL. But I do think that the situation is such a big factor, and the Panthers are such a bad organization.
That doesn't help.
It doesn't.
That doesn't help. But he's inaccurate. He's holding on to the ball.
He wasn't good.
There's no
wasn't
rhythm
good.
whatsoever. And Canales did wonders with Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield, who are older than Bryce Young. But like he got them into good situations. And I'm not suggesting that Tampa and Seattle had the best personnel situations in football. Bryce Young just looks completely lost. So the Saints had to get this one. They were good in every aspect of the game, and they did get it done. And now you go through this 4-week stretch that is, it's just massive. And I think most Saints fans would have taken 3-2 through 5 weeks, and that's going to be tough to get to. But you've got an opportunity if you play like that to get there. And if you're clinging to hope, Carr looked pretty good the last 4 weeks of the year last year once he got a little healthier. And now he's healthy. If you can keep him that way, we'll see. Offensive line was excellent. You saw Eric McCoy was the highest graded player on Pro Football Focus. Trevor Penning, I didn't notice him, which is a good start. I did not notice him.
I will say I did notice him a few times. A couple of times they got him out in space, and he made a few plays. He did have a holding call.
He did.
But overall, he really wasn't bad. He was a lot better than I was expecting.
Those preseason snaps were terrifying. They were so bad, even a novice football watcher could watch the play and go, oh my gosh. And that did not happen yesterday. And Carolina's got good players on the front. Like their defense was decent last year. They're just so bad on offense they can't win any games. I joked yesterday on Twitter, put the Carolina Panthers are now on the clock. It kind of feels like they're headed in that direction once again. The Saints win at 47-10, and I would suggest probably look the best of any team in the NFL. I think the Cowboys win was probably a little bit more impressive because it was on the road against a really good team. But the Saints, that was a complete performance start to finish, and they should be pretty proud of themselves, pretty happy if you're in black and gold today.
And you said the next 4 weeks. I would say even the next 5 weeks. I know it's at home, but the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield,
it's a huge game.
It is, and they looked good. I know they were playing the Commanders and a rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels, but the Commanders' defense is pretty stout. So the next 5 weeks, truthfully, is going to be really massive. And then, of course, you had that home tilt against Denver with the Sean Payton homecoming. So that'll be interesting.
Denver did not look great.
No, they
yesterday.
didn't. They did not look
great.
No.
If you want to read some Saints coverage, Ross Jackson did a fantastic job for us in the Dome yesterday. Got a quick piece up after the game. Did a by the numbers piece. He's got some Pro Football Focus grades that are up there as well. So if you're looking for some Saints content to digest today on this Monday in the office, LouisianaSports.net, fantastic spot. Ross is doing great work for us out on LouisianaSports.net. All right, we're moving quickly through hour number 1. We'll come back and close it out next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
All right, you know by now, Francine is out there in the Gulf. So as far as Francine goes, you're a little bit late to the generator game. But this is inevitable, and there's a good chance that there could be some power outages in South Louisiana coming up this week. You can protect yourself against those power outages with a standby generator at your home from Boudreaux's Electrical. You're never going to hear me on this show talk about a VIP package or some enhanced deal that you can pay for from Boudreaux's Electrical. Every single time they take on a new customer, you're going to get a VIP experience. You're going to get a full-time employee that does the installation. It's going to be done professionally. It's going to be done mostly underground so that it looks nice. And then you're going to get the opportunity to have your generator monitored remotely 24/7 so that in the event that something goes wrong with your generator, Boudreaux's Electrical will know about it. They can come out there and fix it so that you can have your power. A hurricane coming through. Hope everybody's safe and prepared for this week as Francine heads towards the coastline. You need to make sure the next time one of these hurricanes comes through, you're protected with a Generac generator from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. Give them a call, 985-397-1562. Again, that's 985-397-1562. Or check them out online at boudreauxelectrical.com.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has back-to-school savings like $16,000 off 25 Ram 1500 trucks. We're open for business in our beautiful new showroom and taking $16,000 off. All new Bayou vehicles come with a complimentary extended warranty. The crew at Bayou Automotive is going to do right by you.
It's no secret. The best oysters in Baton Rouge are at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar. Enjoy mouth-watering South Louisiana flavor and oysters from all over the country. And don't forget our nightly drink specials. Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar, located in downtown Baton Rouge.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
Bayou Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram has back-to-school savings like $16,000 off 25 Ram 1500 trucks. We're open for business in our beautiful new showroom and taking $16,000 off.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
All right, we'll finish up hour number 1 here, and our Monday show is brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. All your printing, scanning, copying needs, they got you covered there at Gulf Coast Office Products. With a couple injury updates from Brian Kelly today regarding his team. Of course, the big story was Jacobian Guillory. That story broke yesterday with his Achilles tear. He is out for the season, and we talked about that earlier in the show and how LSU replaces him or attempts to replace Jacobian Guillory. But there are a couple other guys dealing with some minor injuries. Chris Hilton still not quite ready to roll. No real update on him, but you know that he's missed the first 2 weeks with that bone bruise. They're just trying to get past the point where he feels comfortable getting in and out of his breaks. So I would, this is a guess. I'm able to speculate on radio. I probably wouldn't print this, but I can speculate on the radio. I feel like there's a pretty good chance Chris Hilton's going to play this weekend. Like, that's my guess. I'm not a doctor. I haven't spoken to Chris. I haven't spoken to anyone who has spoken to Chris. But it just feels like, based on the updates Brian Kelly has been giving and the fact that Chris Hilton is out there at practice and he has put some pads on and he's progressing. It feels like this is the week. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. LSU's got a lot of really good receivers, and they'll go to Columbia, South Carolina, and they'll put up a bunch of yards passing with or without Chris Hilton. But I would like to see him out there on the field. I think he's the guy that can help LSU's offense, and you just feel for a guy who's dealt with injury problems now for 4 years at LSU, and hopefully he can get out on the field this coming weekend. Kyle Parker also dealing with an injury. Kelly said it's a nerve issue there with that UCL in his elbow. It seems like he's progressing towards a return. I don't know if that's going to be this week or not. Brian Kelly will now update us coming up. He's got the teleconference on Wednesday, and then his final press conference will be Thursday. You'll get a better feel for how those guys are progressing probably Thursday evening when Brian Kelly does meet with the media. And the last guy, and this is good news for LSU, is Garrett Dellinger. He missed the game on Saturday. You saw Tyree Adams in there to start. Paul Mabenga went in there for him afterward. I thought both guys were okay in the game, but not quite to the level that Dellinger is. He is cleared. He's ready to go. Garrett Dellinger is going to be out there at practice today, and will be ready to go against South Carolina. So that was an interesting sub that we saw in the game for LSU. You saw Tyree Adams play to begin with. And then you saw Paul Mabenga replace him, and I don't know if that was a plan or if that was because they weren't happy with Adams playing. But I thought that Tyree Adams was going to be the next man up no matter what lineman went down. Either of the tackle spots, he's a plug-in. I guess if Will Campbell went down, maybe Emory Jones would go to the left side, but he would play at tackle if either guy went in. If you saw DJ Chester get hurt at center, I do think that you would probably see Dellinger kick to center and Adams go in at guard, and then obviously Adams go in at either guard spot if one of those guys were to go down. That was the case. Mabenga did come in and play. And the other piece of the offensive line puzzle, it's not injury related, but it's just something that we saw in the game coming up on back on Saturday, is that they put Bo Bordelon in there as a tight end to block. And for those that watched the tape of the USC game, it was pretty evident that LSU's tight ends were really struggling in the running game. Mason Taylor being the oldest of that crew, he's the best, but then Pimpton and Green are not guys who are going to spend a ton of time at this point blocking successfully. They're thin, they're really long and rangy. They're good pass catchers. Pimpton had, of course, the big play against USC, and then Trey'Dez Green had his first touchdown back on Saturday, but they're not run blockers at this point. They've got to put on weight. They've got to get more physical. They've got to get tougher, and they got to learn to block. Bo Bordelon doesn't have an issue with that. He's over 300 pounds. He's been working at tackle at LSU for a couple of years, and they put a tight end number on him and sent him out to do some run blocking at the tight end spot. I think you're going to see a little bit more of that. The tight end is a vital part of Brian Kelly's offense. And make no mistake, yes, Spike Denbrock was installing the offense and calling the plays. Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton are installing the offense and running the plays. But it all comes from Brian Kelly's system. He is an offensive coach. He is in the offensive meetings. He sits into the meetings with the offensive coordinators and the quarterbacks. In his philosophy and his offense is going to involve a tight end in the passing game and in the running game. And if you have some tight ends out there that can't do this properly, well, you can put another guy out there as an extra offensive lineman. And LSU is going to need to do that because they're going to have to find somehow, some way to run the football. And right now, they're not doing it effectively enough. We'll play the sound from Brian Kelly tomorrow, what he spoke about the running game, and I'll have some more statistics to kind of put behind it. But they've got to find a way to be a little bit more consistent, to be better in terms of yards per carry, and to get some chunk plays. They're not getting any chunk plays on the ground either. All of that is having to come through the air, and that's just a difficult way to make a living, to make yourself very, very one-dimensional, and LSU feels that way right now. Brian Kelly's not concerned, and I don't think he's just blowing smoke. We've now gotten him for 3 years, and he's been pretty candid in press conferences about what's going on, no matter the situation. In this case, he says they're okay with how well they're running the ball right now. I just disagree. I think they've got to run the ball a little bit better, and if they need to put Bo Bordelon out there at tight end to do it, then I'm all for it. I think you've got running backs who can play at this level. You've got running backs who can be productive. They're not productive through 2 weeks of this season, and in my estimation, that's because the offensive line's not doing quite a good enough job at the point of attack. I'll lean on T-Bob. He's going to watch the Nichols film today, and he'll talk about it on the morning show tomorrow. I trust his judgment on offensive line play and grading film better than I. But they've got to do a better job, and it'll be good to have Garrett Dellinger back because he is a very, very good run blocker, and we'll see him in the lineup, assuming no setbacks this week against South Carolina coming up at 11 o'clock. The other newsworthy piece from LSU football today is that kickoff time has been set for UCLA. If you missed this earlier, they're in a flex, but it's only a 40-minute flex or so. LSU will play UCLA not at a Saturday night, which I kind of figured they would. They're going to flex that game in the afternoon between 2:30 and 3:15, whichever spot. It's ABC, ESPN, ESPN2 all have slots during that time, so LSU will play UCLA in the afternoon. There's a small piece of me that looks at that as an advantage for LSU to play at 3 o'clock in the afternoon with UCLA because it's still going to be September and it's still going to be probably pushing 90 degrees, and UCLA's been out there in Southern California training in camp all fall. They're going to come down here, and it's going to be rather humid and real hot at that point to them. That's probably an advantage for LSU. But I figured it'd be a night game just because it's a novelty game with UCLA coming into Tiger Stadium, and usually when you see that, you want to put that Saturday night in Death Valley on the television. But that's not the case. ESPN says they'd rather LSU play UCLA in the afternoon. So on September 21st, LSU and UCLA will play at either 2:30 or 3:15. That's it for hour number 1, presented by Gulf Coast Office Products. If you missed any of it, you can catch it on demand wherever you find your sound. We'll kick off hour number 2 with my SEC picks against the spread. Still got to get to Denton Day on the college football weekend. That's coming up in hour number 2 as well. Come back after Sports Center. Hunt Palmer Show.
Bayou Ford has the new inventory to get you in a new Ford truck or SUV today, or customize your next vehicle just the way you want it. All new Bayou Ford vehicles come with a 1 million mile powertrain warranty. The crew at Bayou Ford is going to do right by you.
When it comes to choosing energy for your family and your home, make the smart choice with natural gas. You can count on efficient and affordable natural gas to keep you comfortable and reduce your environmental impact to help protect our planet. Together, we're fueling our energy future. Atmos Energy.
The Windsor Senior Living Community in Mandeville, Louisiana is a beautiful, vibrant apartment community geared towards seniors. They are nestled right in the heart of Mandeville, where seniors live a more carefree lifestyle in spacious apartments with the peace of mind that comes from having a little extra help. Call the Windsor at 985-624-8040 to schedule a lunch and tour. Come see how the Windsor can be your passport to peace of mind.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
BRAC teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered. Gold. BRAC, your #1 park system in the nation.
Electricity is all around us, and our families depend on it. Every day is sparked by the power of a cold drink or a warm meal, a movie night, and a comforting light at the end of a dark hallway. From sunrise to sunset, playtime to bedtime, our team is ready to take care of your electrical needs, even in the case of an after-hours emergency. The light in your life shines brighter with Mr. Electric.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques, Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
This is SportsCenter.
I'm Christine Lisi. Week 1 of the NFL season caps off with the Jets and 49ers on Monday Night Football as quarterback Aaron Rodgers makes his long-anticipated return from an Achilles injury. 8 Eastern, ABC, and ESPN. Rodgers and the offense, not the only reason New York can pull off the upset tonight, believes ESPN NFL analyst Herm Edwards.
Their defense is good enough to cause problems. The Jets have the ability with their front. They don't have to bring pressure. They can rush 4 guys. And, you know, they're good enough in the back end where they can cover some people. I think Christian McCaffrey is the key. Can they slow him down in the run game, but also in the pass game? He's an excellent pass receiver.
Herm Edwards on Greeny. McCaffrey, who missed most of training camp with a sore calf and Achilles, has said he will play tonight. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter and Todd Archer, Cowboys tight end Jake Ferguson, diagnosed with a bone bruise and minor sprain of the MCL in his left knee, could play Sunday against the Saints. Browns tight end David Njoku week to week with an ankle injury. Colorado safety Shiloh Sanders recovering from forearm surgery.
Why pay more for a great shave? Choose Barbasol, America's #1 brand of shaving cream. Barbasol's thick and rich lather gives you a close, comfortable shave for just half the price of gels. Barbasol.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Gulf Coast Office Products. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Should be an eventful week down here in South Louisiana. Unfortunately, for the wrong reasons, the hurricane kind of barreling towards the Louisiana coast. So hope everybody is safe this week, and we'll certainly have coverage of all of that over on Talk 107.3 locally here at under our guarantee roof. Who could have seen this going very, very poorly back? I laid 50 million points on Saturday, and that strategy did not work out so hot.
Well, I saw one of them coming, Hunt. Oklahoma and Houston.
Did. I mean, I thought that was the lock of the century.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Hold on, I'm biting off a sneeze here. That's always great live radio.
You did sneeze in the last segment too, and we could slightly hear it, but there's not much you can do about it.
There's really not much I can do about it. Just hope that it goes away, and this one may have gone away, so that's a good thing. Look, I did get home with Texas. I did get home. Let's see. It's hard to find the winners. I did have South Carolina catching some points.
You did.
So that's good. That was a winner.
I think you still had them losing though.
Yeah, I think I did. And then I had Ole Miss covering. That was correct.
Yep.
They destroyed Middle Tennessee. So that was a winner. I had Tennessee laying the points 9.5. That was easy money. The Vols are good, and then Texas as well. But everybody else lost. So that was a big time
Arkansas
losing
should have
weekend.
been a winner. Easily.
Yeah, I mean, that was let's just talk. That's the point of the segment. I want to talk about the games. I wanted to start with Texas, but we'll start with Arkansas. Why not? That was a clinic on how to lose a football game.
Yep.
I mean, absolute clinic how to lose a football game. They immediately get up 2 scores. They are dominating Oklahoma State. Ollie Gordon cannot go anywhere. Taylon Green looks comfortable in Bobby Petrino's offense. They're talking about Lamar Jackson on the telecast. Like it was clinical. They look great. And then how do you lose a game? Well, here's how you lose games. You throw a pick 6. Don't need to do that.
Nope.
Now, there was some pressure, and it was pretty good defensive play. You hit the quarterback and made a play on the ball, but you throw a pick 6. Then you muff a punt and give up a really short scoring drive. Your defense has been playing lights out against Oklahoma State, and you give them a short field, and they punch it in for a touchdown. And then, this was on Sam Pittman to me, it's a tie game. You're late in the game, under 4 minutes to play, and you've got a 4th and 5 opportunity to kick a field goal to take the lead, and your defense has played good all day. And for some reason, Sam Pittman decides to go for 4th and 5, not 4th and inches, 4th and 5, instead of kicking a field goal that would have given them the lead late in the game, and they don't get it. Of course they don't get it. And of course, you go into overtime, you miss a kick, and then you give up a touchdown. It was just a comedy of errors for Arkansas. And you look at that game and the way that it played out, and you look at the yardstick in that game, there's just no way that you should lose a football game that you dominate to that extent. And I'm looking at the team stats here. Arkansas outgained Oklahoma State 648 to 385. That is almost 300 more yards of offense, and you lose the game. That is inexplicable.
Yeah, it's tough to believe, but man, really.
Do you think Arkansas fans are encouraged because their team probably played better than they thought?
No.
Or they're discouraged because they lost?
No, I think they would have been. I think they're even worse off than, let's just say, Arkansas goes in there and loses, 31 to 21. I think they're worse off than they would have been in that situation, because it's like, okay, we didn't really expect much in this game, but they go out and they play so well, and you're like, okay, wait a second, we're in this game, and then they throw it away at the end. And that's just, even in my opinion, that's even more of a letdown for the fans, because we actually had a chance to win this game.
Talon Green, who I spent the entire fall absolutely dumping on, and I'll own all of that. It's all because of the Arkansas media.
Yeah.
They were telling me he was terrible. And I was like, all right, well, I'll believe you. I'm sure he's terrible. He wasn't that good at Boise State. He threw for 416.
That's a lot of yards.
He threw for 416 yards. He ran for 61 more. Obviously, they're going to continue to mention Lamar Jackson because Bobby Petrino is standing on the sideline. But he was really good. Arkansas is better than I thought they were. That was a takeaway from Saturday. They lost the game because they made the comedy of errors, but they're very good. Speaking of very good, that was the statement game everybody kind of sensed might be coming from Texas. Now, two things can be true. Texas can be very, very good, and Michigan can have dropped off significantly. Two things can be true at once, and those are, but Texas is really, really good, and they were just vastly superior to Michigan. And what struck me watching that game, especially early on in the game, is that Texas was so physically dominant to Michigan. That's a Michigan program that over the last 5 years has been built on being so tough, so physical, and so strong at the point of attack. And I get it. You lose a lot of guys to the NFL. It's tough to keep that churning. But Texas just whipped them. I mean, just whipped them at both lines of scrimmage from the start to the finish, and was a team that kind of put the world on notice, like, hey, we're a college football playoff and national title contender. Michigan ran for 3.7 yards per carry with a long of 12. They're just going to have a hard time doing anything when that's the case. Davis Warren did not look like a big-time quarterback. He throws the 2 interceptions. I think I'm selling any Michigan stock I may have had. I didn't think they were a threat to make the playoff this year, but that machine was moving in the right direction because of Jim Harbaugh. He's gone, and I don't know if Sharon Moore's a good coach or not. I have no idea, but he's not Jim Harbaugh, and that looks evident. I don't expect Michigan to be a real force in the near future.
Yeah, they're going to lose to Ohio State at the end of the year. That'll give them 2 losses, and then they got USC in a few weeks, who still
give me USC.
Yeah, I'll take USC as well, even though that will be in the Big House. I think that'll still be a really tough game for them against a really good offense, as everyone knows. Then they got Oregon too at home. It's at home, but still, you got to play Oregon, USC, Ohio State. I don't see any way they win. They may win one of those games, but they're not winning 2 of them. So that gives them 3 losses, and they're completely out of the playoff picture. So yeah, that's tough, man. It's not a good spot for Sharon Moore to step in, but man, that was not good against Texas. They looked inept on offense. I mean, they kept trying to run the ball in the fourth quarter, and they were down 3 scores. It was hard to watch.
I'd turn it off by that point, but I saw Twitter reacting like, what are you doing? Have a little bit of urgency.
No.
Completely out. Speaking of urgency, Tennessee always has urgency on offense. They're always going. I may have hit on this in preseason. And look, I don't know if NC State's great or not. I think Tennessee's really good. I don't think they're as good as Georgia. I don't think they're as good as Texas, but I think they're really good. I think they are a threat to get to the SEC championship game. I think they are a threat to get into the playoff, and I think they are a threat to win playoff games. I believe in Josh Heupel's offense. I believe if you have a quarterback who is functional, and I don't believe that Joe Milton is, that he elevates them, and they're going to be really difficult to stop most days. And NC State just had no answer. And when you think of Josh Heupel, I think most of the time people think about the fact that they go really fast and they throw it all over the place. And it's kind of like Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss in this way. They want to run the ball. And Tennessee ran it 44 times on Saturday for 249 yards. Like, they were just pounding ahead. And Nico is good. He did throw 2 picks, but he was a high completion percentage. He threw 2 touchdowns. He is able to keep up at that warp pace. And their defense is not bad. And they absolutely bottled up NC State's rushing attack. NC State in the game ran it 28 times for 39 yards. You've got one of the best pass rushers in the country in Pierce. You've got a defense that's showing up. I realize that a lot of people were concerned about their secondary. Grayson McCall threw for 104 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. His QBR was 22.7. I mean, they've got Kevin Concepcion, who many people think is one of the better receivers in the country, and he had 5 catches, 53 yards. It wasn't a great day at the office for him. I think the Vols are for real. I think the Vols are going to be heard from as the season moves on. That schedule's not easy for Tennessee. They've got Kent State coming up before the big one when they travel to Oklahoma, but they still got a date with Alabama in Neyland Stadium. They got to go to Georgia. But right now, if they can find a way to beat Oklahoma, they're going to be in the playoff, because if they beat Oklahoma, they're really only 2 pitfalls that I see the rest of the way, because they're not losing at Arkansas. They're not going to lose to Florida, I don't think. I don't think they're going to lose to Kentucky either, and they're certainly not going to lose at Vanderbilt. So you could still be 10-2. I think they'd be in the playoffs. I think Tennessee is really, really good. So that was another big takeaway from SEC action. And then Oklahoma is the one you called and that you mentioned and that I wanted to mention here as we close things up. I mean, they get a late safety in the fourth quarter. It was a 2-point game before that.
Yeah, it was
a 2-point game in the fourth quarter, and Houston had gotten drilled by UNLV last week. So I'm not sure what to make of that. Sometimes you just play a stinker. I mean, LSU was 2 points up on Nichols in the third quarter on Saturday, but Oklahoma wasn't able to separate. Jackson Arnold only threw for 174 yards. The running game averaged 2.8 yards per carry. Like, they played good defense, and they held Houston to 12 points, and that's good. I expect Brent Venables' teams to be better on defense, but the offense has to be a kind of a question mark at this point for Oklahoma. You scored really 14 points and then a safety on Houston.
Yeah, that was tough to watch as well, man. Like, they're playing at home against the Houston team who, like you said, they lost to UNLV. UNLV might not be bad. They might be a decent team.
It's still UNLV.
It's still UNLV. But man, that's not great. I don't know, like if it can't be a look at. It's why they're playing Tulane next week. But Tulane played a really good game against Kansas State.
Yeah,
probably should have won that game.
They should have won the game.
But man, that's tough. Oklahoma's got to go. They got to play Tulane at home, which will not be easy. And they got Tennessee at Auburn, but then Texas at home. And the Sooner schedule is going to start heating up very soon. And there could be a lot of losses up on that schedule in the next 4 or 5 weeks.
We'll stay on time because I want to get to Denton Day coming up at 2:30, and there are 3 more games that I'd like to mention for the SEC. Cal beat Auburn, and it was a pitiful offensive effort by Hugh Freeze and Auburn. Kentucky looked atrocious against LSU's next opponent in South Carolina, and then Mississippi State in the nightcap came up short with a late comeback surge against Arizona State. They lose in Jeff Levy's first road game as the head coach of Mississippi State. So we'll talk about all those games when we come back on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports. EvolvePT.com is the website. Robbie Bolton's been at it for 2 decades here in Baton Rouge, and he's the best in the game when it comes to physical therapy. He tells me that so often folks have bad experiences in physical therapy because they'll be sent somewhere. They're not really sure what they're supposed to be getting out of it. They get handed a little exercise sheet to work on, say, we'll see you next week. And there's just not enough hands-on interaction. And that's exactly what you're going to get at Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports. They are hands-on from the time you walk in to the time you leave. It's rehabilitation. You're trying to get back to being your active self. And Evolve Physical Therapy is going to help you do that, whether it's the isokinetic testing, whether it's the cupping, the scraping, They got the dry needling as well. They can do all that for you at Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports. Whether you're a 70-year-old that's just trying to get back on the golf course, a youth athlete, a 9-year-old gymnast, whatever the case may be, if you're an active person and you want to get back to being your active self, but you can't because there's pain, Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports is here to help. They're online at evolvept.com. They are on Starring near Highland Road. It's Robbie Bolton and his team at Evolve Physical Therapy and Sports, evolvept.com.
It's no secret. The best oysters in Baton Rouge are at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar. Enjoy mouth-watering South Louisiana flavor and oysters from all over the country. And don't forget our nightly drink specials. Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar, located in downtown Baton Rouge.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood Subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals, but many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Chugging right along, Denton Day going to join us coming up in 15 minutes, talking college football from a national perspective. But I wanted to talk a lither bit about the other SEC games. Did you catch Brock Vandegrift's stat line over the weekend, Beck?
Yeah, it wasn't good.
No, it was not good. It was really bad. Kentucky's quarterback, who was a 5-star recruit when he signed at Georgia and was kind of the next guy that was going to take over for the Wildcats, he was 3 of 10 in the game against South Carolina, which is bad. He had 30 yards passing, which is bad, but it's even worse when you consider that one of his 3 completions was for 31 yards. So the other 2 were for a total of -1 yard. He threw an interception, no touchdowns, just awful.
Kind of head scratching, if you will. Not too surprising that he ran the ball 46 times because Mark Stoops likes to run the football. But again, it's almost like the Michigan game with Texas. When you're losing by this many points, I understand you don't want to get away from what you do, but you have to throw the ball.
But get away from what you do
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you're getting your butt kicked
Yes,
doing what you do.
Precisely.
So-
They average 3 yards per carry. Like, it's not working.
Throw the ball. They've had trouble. They had 1 year where they could kind of spin it a little
Yeah,
bit.
Will Levis was pretty
been
good.
it. But I mean, South Carolina has owned Kentucky. They've beaten them 4 out of 5, and it's just a weird dynamic right now with Stoops in Kentucky because of the A&M situation, and like I think that Kentucky hit their high water mark a couple of years ago. You were in a situation where Tennessee still hadn't gotten it figured out, and Florida was in a little bit of flux, and they were able to go down there and win a little bit, and Vanderbilt's atrocious, and South Carolina's not any good, and they were in a pretty weak East, and they were able to pick off some wins here and there. You always play Mississippi State. And you
Just
get a
beat
chance
everybody
there.
besides Georgia, and that's a pretty good season.
And that's a great season, and they were able to win 10 games, and that's awesome. But now the East is gone, and you got 2 more big boys coming in, and Tennessee's kind of figuring it out. And, like, there's just not room for Kentucky to win 9 or 10 games anymore. And you've got a coach who's done a good job there. But he took another job. He took the A&M job and then crawled back. And I think it's a weird spot for Kentucky. I told you on Friday that I thought that this game might be the beginning of the end for Shane Beamer at South Carolina. Much to the contrary, they go out there and play great and win, so it doesn't feel like that at all as LSU goes there. I was thinking, and I said this on the postgame show on the network on Saturday, I said I was thinking entering the day Saturday that LSU might get a kind of downtrodden Carolina program. You played really poorly against Old Dominion, and there's a chance, at least a chance, that Kentucky beats you up pretty good in Lexington. And all of a sudden, you've got one bad performance, one awful loss, and you got LSU coming in for an 11 o'clock kickoff. Maybe the vibes are really bad in South Carolina. Instead, Carolina goes to Lexington and wails on Kentucky, and College Game Day announces they're coming. So all of a sudden, you went from maybe a little bit of a sullen environment to that place going to be on springs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a crazy environment that LSU's going into. So that was, I thought, the result of Saturday for South Carolina. Auburn just looked brutal offensively. Cal should not be holding you to 14 points in Jordan-Hare Stadium. That's just not good enough. And I just don't think Peyton Thorne's good enough. Hugh Freeze doesn't need Jaden Daniels or Joe Burrow. He won a lot of games with Bo Wallace at quarterback. So, like, he doesn't. But Peyton Thorne's not good enough. He throws 4 interceptions in this game. His quarterback rating was 28.9, and that's it. When you don't have a quarterback, you can't win. I don't care what you are, who you are, and Auburn just doesn't have a quarterback. He wasn't good last year. Everybody blamed it on the wide receivers. They went out and got new wide receivers. Cam Coleman's a 5-star recruit that comes in. Kendra Lambert-Smith comes in as a transfer. Like, they went and tried to revamp that receiving core. But if you don't have somebody to throw it to them, forget it.
Yeah, I mean, Jarquez Hunter's still really good, but if you can't throw the ball, then it's going to be hard to run the ball. And the fact that Cal, it is shocking that they were able to play so well in Jordan-Hare. You can't really, and I will say this too. The Twitter stuff from Cal was great. They had some fun with that beating Auburn, because you just know that those guys don't expect anything from their football team. But the fact they went and beat an SEC team, man, that's a big win for them.
ACC football, baby, the Cal Bears. That was really bad by Auburn. Of course, LSU doesn't play Auburn this year, which is weird, but the Tigers do not play them. And then the other game that I wanted to get to before we get to Denton Daycare, coming up here in 8 minutes, was Mississippi State and Arizona State. That game was out there on the West Coast. It looked like a really good environment. I watched some of that game late night after I was done.
Really nice uniforms from Arizona State. I'm not sure
okay. Atrocious.
Yeah, I expected this from the uniforms are. I'm not surprised.
Really bad.
Yeah.
The all yellow was a terrible look. Looked awful out there. Played better. And it wasn't like they were setting the world on fire throwing the football. They just decided they were going to turn around and hand it off, and Mississippi State just couldn't deal with it.
54 rushing attempts that's like an Army statistic, or that's a
for
service
359 yards. I feel bad for Cam Scotabo, their running back. He had an incredible game, 33 carries for 262. They didn't get him in the end zone.
No, they couldn't get him a touchdown.
They got vultured by Sam Levitt, so they couldn't get him in the end zone. But that to me, you look at the box score and you look at the way that this game went, and that's the roster that Jeff Lebby inherited not being good enough. Because what do we know about Mississippi State? No matter who the coach is there, they've usually got 2 or 3 defensive linemen that are a problem. They usually have Fletcher Cox. They usually have Chris Jones. They usually have somebody up front. Montez, that is a problem. And the roster just does not have that right now. They went through that transition. Obviously, it was a tough time for them. It's their third head coach in 3 years. I think they will get that back, and I think Levy's going to score some points, and I think he's a good hire for Mississippi State. But right now, they just don't have their usual roster. So he was able to scheme it up and let Chapin throw for 268 yards and a couple of scores, and they couldn't run the ball, so they had to do everything basically through the air. They're just not good roster-wise, and that's something that Levy's going to have to clean up, and Arizona State feasted on a little bit, so the Dogs go to 1-1. That was really all of my takeaways from the SEC.
Alabama got a little bit.
I was in the press box at that point trying to write and do some things, so I didn't watch a snap of that game. I did monitor the score, but they put their foot on the gas at the end and got it over with, and that's just kind of what you expect there. There's when you play those games, sometimes you worry about motivation and whether or not guys are fired up to play.
Interesting.
I didn't read a ton into it.
Interesting game next week in Camp Randall for Alabama there. I mean, I know Wisconsin's not very good, but man, that's always going to be a tough place to play.
But I think Wisconsin will have Alabama's attention. So you go, and that's the worst thing. It's like some of those games, like who got Tennessee got Georgia's attention 2 years ago when the Vols were kind of rolling, and they just got absolutely annihilated. You've seen that happen a couple times with teams, and that's the thing that I talked about with LSU playing Alabama in that same spot every single year during Saban's prime. Alabama took a week off. Game day was always there. CBS picked it as their one-night game. You got Alabama locked in for LSU every single season, which was a real drag. And when you know that you can't sneak up on them, it can be a problem.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. It's 11 a.m. kick. It could be, they got Georgia the week after that. So maybe it could be a little bit of a look-ahead spot.
Yeah,
so
it could
see.
be, but I think you go up there to a new place and jump around and all that kind of stuff. I think they'll be ready to play. We'll ask Denton Day about it coming up in the next segment. Denton, the host of Sirius XM's College Football Overtimes, with us talking national college football storylines each and every Monday. We'll talk with him coming up next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Got to make LeBear's your game day watching location all season long, especially when the Tigers are out of town, which they are this week. They got great big screen TVs in there, fantastic food options as well. So make ESPN Bet in LeBear's your game watching location. Cover 5 has been a ton of fun through 2 weeks. Got to download the Pin Play app, download the Cover 5 app, and then you make your 5 SEC picks every single week. Folks, I am rolling right now. I had a fantastic week, went 4-0, but I was scoring points on Cover 5. Had 60 points, and the points come from the differential between the spread and the actual score. You can compete against me. Enter the code LABRSEC24. That's LABRSEC24. And pick the SEC games that week. You can compete against me and win prizes. Get that Pen Play app today. LeBear's Baton Rouge is your live sports headquarters. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-589-9966 for help.
Hey, it's Matt Moscona. For years, you've heard me tell you about Insurance Network of Louisiana, helping you find better coverage for less money. But it's not just for your home and auto. They also offer commercial property. So, retail stores, professional offices like doctors, dentists, attorneys, clothing boutiques. Insurance Network of Louisiana can find you better coverage for less money. They service the entire state of Louisiana, and they're local. So call today at 293-0450 or lainsurance.net.
Gulf Coast Office Products is a nationally recognized Savin office equipment dealer based right here in Louisiana. Over 100 employees strong, Gulf Coast has the boots on the ground to support all vertical markets, from education, engineering, legal, and finance. With the latest in office technology, from desktop to production segment units, Gulf Coast and Savin have the perfect fit for you. Call 225-756-2644. That's 756-2644 for Gulf Coast Office Products.
There it is, the extra mile, on the border of expected and extraordinary, for those willing to go further, like vans customized for work or play, with safety and tech to keep you connected, supported by a 5-star sales, service, and finance team, and backed by the 1-star you know. So go the extra mile. It's never crowded, because so few have what it takes to go there. Mercedes-Benz Vans.
Jerry and Benny Payne began Central Plumbing Company out of their driveway in Tanglewood subdivision. 50 years later and 4 generations down the road, we continue to serve Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas for all of their plumbing needs. Residential, commercial, industrial, or hospitality, Central Plumbing is here 24/7, 365.
We want to thank our customers, family, and friends for 50 years of success.
And looking forward to 50 more.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Rolling right along on this Monday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Gulf Coast Office Products. Bottom of the second hour every single Monday, we chat with our guy Denton Day. SiriusXM's college football overtime every single Saturday after the games go final, and with us here on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Denton, how we doing?
Hunt, what's up, man? How are you?
We're doing all right down here. Going to get a little wet later this week with a hurricane on the way, but everything's okay. Tigers did enough to get it done against Nichols on Saturday. Now they'll open up conference play with South Carolina this week. I wanted to talk briefly before we get to college. Jaden Daniels, his true debut, not a preseason game, a regular season game. Didn't quite have enough down in Tampa, but what'd you think watching your new quarterback?
It was a little too familiar to LSU season last year, and the defense did not help the quarterback out at all, and he had to play Superman to even make the game close. But, I loved it then. I guess I'll be forced to love it now. I thought he played well. I don't love the fact that he ran 16 times. I don't think that's going to be sustainable. I think he needs to tighten his helmet up a little bit. It fell off his head a couple of different times, and that's never a good sign when your quarterback's running around out there with no helmet. But it was something for a rookie debut. It was a good rookie debut, right? It wasn't great, but it was good, and I was pleased with what I saw from him.
All right, let's go to the college game. We got to start an Ann Arbor statement game for the Longhorns. How good are they?
They're really good. They're really, really good, and there's not a quarterback in college football right now that I trust more than Quinn Ewers. He has a knack for going into really tough environments, taking on good teams, because despite the fact that Michigan doesn't have a quarterback, they're a really good defensive team. And Quinn Ewers, the stones on that kid, he walked right in there and he gave them the business. It was really impressive to watch him. It's really easy to root for him, too, so I really liked what I saw from Texas this weekend.
Notre Dame, highest of highs. You get one of the biggest winnings of the first weekend on the road in College Station, then you come back and throw up all over yourself against Northern Illinois. What do you make of Marcus Freeman's team?
I guess we shouldn't have clinched a spot in the playoff for them last week, right? That's sure. We everyone said, hey, they're going to the playoff, and then they were like, nah, we'll make this way more difficult on ourselves. This is just kind of what Marcus Freeman has been at Notre Dame. I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach, but they have a weird consistency of losing to teams that they should beat. And it's like this overarching, I don't know if it's an issue, but it's a theme, Hunt, in college football this year. There are a lot of teams that don't really seem to have a quarterback that they trust or that they can rely on. I thought Riley Leonard played really well in a couple of games when he was at Duke. I was really excited to see what he was going to be like in Notre Dame. I thought last week there were some stretches where in that game where he played really well, but you guys scored 14 points against Northern Illinois. With all due respect to the Huskies, 14 points against Northern Illinois. You're the fifth-ranked team in the country. Are you serious? Like, it's an embarrassing loss to have on the resume.
Tennessee 51, NC State 10. Are the Vols a threat in the Southeastern Conference?
Yeah, this was the most impressive win in week 2. This was the most impressive win. It's one thing to do this to Iowa in a bowl game, because we know nowadays bowl games don't really mean much. I know Iowa's defense is obviously really good, but it's a bowl game still, so that there's a bit of an asterisk there. You do it to Chattanooga, cool. But, you're basically paying to bully Chattanooga. Not impressive. Doing it to NC State, albeit at a neutral site and not a home field advantage for NC State, although it was pretty darn close. I mean, it's in Charlotte, so it is basically home field for NC State. The way that Nico played was really impressive, but really just the entire offense for Tennessee. If you're putting 51 up on a team like NC State, I don't know that NC State's all that impressive. I'm not like a huge Grayson McCall guy now. I think he was a much bigger deal in Coastal Carolina because people love the fact that Coastal Carolina's field was teal, and they didn't know where Coastal Carolina was, but he's now playing with the big boys, and he's just not it. But Tennessee, this was the most impressive win I thought of the weekend because they stomped on NC State, and they just didn't stop.
It was really impressive. The ground game was fantastic. When Josh Heupel's offense gets running, it's a scary sight for most teams not named Georgia. And NC State was no match for the Vols in that one. Speaking of offenses, Jackson Arnold and the Oklahoma offense couldn't find much of anything. Only 16 points, and 2 of those came on a safety against Houston. Is there cause for concern in Norman?
I don't know if I'd say cause for concern. I think this is kind of what the expectation should have been this year. Maybe not only scoring 16 points to Houston, but understanding that this is kind of maybe not rebuilding, because I don't know that you really have rebuilding years in college the same way that you do in the NFL, but this is a bit of a retooling. You have a guy in Jackson Arnold that hadn't played a lot of football. These kinds of performances are going to come with it. I think by the end of the year, you'll start to see him get into a rhythm, and you won't see a ton of 16-point performances from Oklahoma this year. I think eventually their offense will start putting up some bigger numbers.
Chatting with Denton Day, college football overtime on SiriusXM each and every Saturday evening. Just going through kind of the big games of the weekend. This past weekend, Arkansas dominated Oklahoma State early and then completely gave it away and lost in double overtime. How big a deal is that for Sam Pittman?
That's a huge deal. That not the nail in the coffin, obviously, because we're sitting here Monday and everything seems to be all well, at least in terms of job status in Arkansas. But that's one of those games where you're going to look back at and say, this is a pendulum game. It could swing you one way because you get a win on the road at Oklahoma State, the 16th ranked team in the country. You're feeling pretty darn good about yourself. Losing that game is okay, but it's more the matter in which they lost, which was embarrassing. They had every opportunity, and then they started giving Oklahoma State opportunities. And then once Oklahoma State had enough opportunities, Arkansas was like, here, please take some more. It was not a good weekend for Arkansas. Not great for Sam Pittman.
It was just a tough way to lose things. Pick six, muffed punt, missed field goal late, just bad stuff. Let's talk about Florida. Not necessarily the game they just played because that was inconsequential, but DJ Lagway was the starter in Graham Mertz's absence. Billy Napier says that he's going to play both guys moving forward. What does that look like for Florida?
I don't know why coaches do this. I don't know why coaches do the dual thing. I don't know why people are so loyal to Graham Mertz. I need to get my fiance in a room and just make sure that she understands she needs to be as loyal to me as every coach seems to be to Graham Mertz. I don't get it. Like, am I missing something? I know I got glasses, so my sight isn't the greatest in the world, but you have a young guy. Like, if I'm Billy Napier, I'm looking at Lagway and saying, my future here is pretty much attached to him. If he starts to play really well, even if we don't win a bunch of games, I might still have a cause to say, well, we're building momentum with this guy. If we get more talent, next year we'll be better. But keeping the Graham Mertz thing, like the dual quarterback thing, has never really effectively worked, especially, I think, in the SEC. I don't love this decision. It should be Lagway's team from this point forward. The fact they're doing the dual quarterback bit is honestly, it's kind of insulting.
Texas A&M is in the swamp for Florida coming up this weekend. Aggies are a 4-point road favorite in that game. How do you like that one early in the week?
I honestly think I might lean Florida in that. I don't love Connor Wegman. I'm kind of off on Connor Wegman. I might lean Florida in that. I wish that number was maybe a little bigger, but it really is going to depend on how much he's going to play Lagway versus Graham Mertz. If he's going to start with Graham Mertz, I'm not touching that game. that's one of those things as a gambler. You got to wait until you get more information as to what the plan is going to be for Florida, and they're going to do this competitive advantage thing and not tell you anything, which stinks.
Yep.
As a someone that would play that game. But if it's Lagway as the starting quarterback, I'm going with Florida in that one. If it's Graham Mertz, yeah, I'm not playing.
Alabama's at Wisconsin. Can the Badgers give Alabama any problems? The number 16 right now.
Maybe some problems, but I'm excited to see. What Jalen Milroe is going to do against a Wisconsin team that I think is pretty darn good. They like a lot of teams have had some quarterback stuff, shall we say, some quarterback issues. But I think that I think Milroe is going to have a really strong performance this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. This will be a nice test against a good team now that Kalen DeBoer is the head coach.
LSU's headed to South Carolina, and for some reason, ESPN decided to put College Game Day at that game. I have no idea why. But what do you think about Tigers and Gamecocks on Saturday at noon Eastern?
I think LSU should win this one. I, like you, am very confused as to why Game Day is here. With all due respect to South Carolina, that just doesn't seem like an adequate place to put it. I guess there aren't a ton of great games, but you got Boston College and Missouri. You're not going to see Boston College too often on Game Day. It felt like that might have been a pretty good time.
I just figured they'd go to Camp Randall for Wisconsin and Alabama.
I would have thought that too. Wisconsin, Alabama, or Missouri, Boston. Like, I don't know why they chose South Carolina.
I guess they didn't choose Alabama, Wisconsin because it's on Fox. I mean, that's my suggestion, and Big Noon Kickoff will be there and the whole deal. So maybe they were trying to differentiate. But go to one of the FCS schools or something. I don't know why you need to go to LSU in South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they can't do two in a row because I guess they were at Michigan and Texas, so maybe you can't do two in a row at the Fox game. But literally any other game, I mean, like you got Oregon State. That's a nice rivalry game.
Yeah, and now they really hate each other.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I feel like there are much better games to go to than LSU and South Carolina.
We'll see. One more here, and this is going back kind of the last week a little bit, but we here in Baton Rouge, we love our 2019 LSU Tigers. They have a special place in our heart, and David Randall was the defensive coordinator on that team. They lose to Utah over the weekend. Does it feel like things are slipping away from David Randall as the head coach at Baylor?
Yeah, it does. Like you guys, I have that 2019 team has a special place in my heart, and I haven't been to Louisiana in probably like 20 years almost at this point. But I love that team. I love Dave Aranda, and that 1 year at Baylor, he was a lot of fun. And, the Big 12 has always been like this out and open kind of conference, it feels like, because the teams just beat up on each other. But I could have sworn, and I would have put a lot of money after that 1 year that Baylor was going to be the new face of the Big 12 when Texas and Oklahoma inevitably left, and it's been the exact opposite. It's really head-scratching because I think he's a really good head coach, but the results have not been there.
They have not. Denton, we appreciate the time, man. Have a great week.
Hunt, appreciate it as always, man. Be well.
He's Denton Day. College football overtime on SiriusXM every single Saturday after all the games go final. He's always with us on Mondays in hour number 2. We certainly appreciate that. I'm pulling for Dave Aranda. I always enjoyed my brief interactions with him doing the interview before the pregame show that year, and I thought he would do a good job. He's obviously a great X's and O's coach. Everybody saw that here in Baton Rouge. The question is, can you sit in the big chair? Can you do the closing and recruiting? Can you hire the staff? Can you make it all work? And it looked like he was on a great trajectory there. Maybe, I'm not sure. I can't claim to have watched enough Baylor football and examined Baylor recruiting classes well enough to know why things haven't gone very well the last couple of years. But feels like things may be slipping away there, and that would be a bummer. But we'll see. It's early on in this season. They got a chance to rectify things. All right, we'll come back after this final break and close out a Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is online. Do you know what employment practices liability insurance is? Do you know what cyber coverage does? About directors and officers insurance, do you know if you need that? If you're a business owner and some of these may sound a little bit foreign to you, they shouldn't be. And you should have the opportunity to look at those every single year for your insurance renewal. I can't recommend enough dialing up Jonathan Carbo and the team at Highland Insurance Group because they're a fantastic local agency right here in Baton Rouge. They think of their role as a brokerage and as a consultant. They want to join your team as a business owner and make sure that everything is in place before the issue happens, before the hurricane comes through, before the car accident happens, before the cyber breach happens, and make sure that you're covered properly so that things can keep rolling in the event of some sort of issue. That's the way an insurance relationship should work. If you're just thinking about calling an insurance broker and saying, hey, my insurance is too high, please cut this by 20%, they don't have a magic bullet for you. But they can be part of your team and make sure that your coverage is right so that when the issue happens, you are properly covered. That's the Highland Insurance Group. Check them out online, highlandig.com. It's not just property and casualty, though. They can also do your employee and group benefits. They can be your one-stop shop for all things on the insurance front. If you haven't thought about insurance for a while and think you may need a second set of eyeballs on it, Highland Insurance Group needs to be your first caller. Check them out online, highlandig.com. It's the Highland Insurance Group, highlandig.com.
It's an everyday thing here. We work horses in the mornings and we work on the property during the day, and without these John Deere tractors, it'd almost be impossible to keep up with the place. I've dealt with some of the other colors and stuff, and I never really got the response back that I get from John Deere, We really enjoy dealing with Sunshine. They're good people. They always check on us and make sure our equipment's running, and we love them. Flip the switch and learn more about what it means to be powered by Sunshine at sunequip.com.
I've been doing business with Luba for 25 years. They're dependable, trustworthy. It's just the attention to detail with our clients.
Our folks have years and years of experience. They're highly trained professionals. But many companies have that asset. What I'd like to think makes Luba a bit different is that we use those talents in a way that truly is dedicated to serving the needs of the folks who depend on us.
Dylan Cruz here to tell you about Six Rings Baseball and Softball Camp. If you live on the North Shore and play ball, go to Six Rings Camps with former LSU assistant coach Dan Canaveri. His knowledge is second to none, and your child will improve and have fun doing it. Camps were held at Coquille Park and Six Rings Academy in Covington with 4 sessions over the summer. Full day and morning only sessions are available from ages 7 to 13. Go to sixringsbaseball.com or call 985-206-9096. Learn the game to love the game.
When it comes to ending cancer, we push forward, always working together for you. That's why our cancer experts at Ochsner have clinically integrated with MD Anderson Cancer Center. This means advanced cancer care, including access to life-saving clinical trials and integrating care to treat the whole you. Introducing Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. Long live you.
Breck teamed up to reimagine your parks, and you imagined big. With your help, we went to work, creating 12 beautiful community parks across the parish. A family-sized water park, miles and miles of trails, and parks just for your dogs. There are more places to splash, to explore, to run wild, and even soar. You imagined, we delivered.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products.
Congratulations to Quentin Lewis from Walker. Quentin is the Week 2 winner in our 2024 Pick'em contest and wins a Hooters wing party for 10 people. Don't forget to make your picks for round 3 by Thursday at noon. Weekly winners will receive a Hooters wing party for 10, and the first place season-long champion will receive a 75-inch 4K flat-screen TV and soundbar plus free Hooters wings for an entire year. It's the 2024 College Football Pick'em presented by Hooters.
All right, our Monday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, always brought to you by Gulf Coast Office Products. Picked up the edition of the Baton Rouge Business Report recently, and they had the office equipment and supply dealers ranked Not surprisingly, number one, Gulf Coast Office Products right here in Baton Rouge. Number one last year, number one this year. No surprise. If you're looking for printing, scanning, copying, Gulf Coast Office Products is your one-stop shop. Trey Beal and his team have got clients in every single vertical market you can think of, whether it's healthcare, whether it's banking, whether it's law firms, whether it's like us, media company. They've got you covered, and they understand the needs of different industries. If you haven't given that any thought with your office equipment, do it. Call Gulf Coast Office Products. Check them out online, gcopnet.com, and make sure that you have exactly what you need to keep things rolling in your line of work. Shout out to Trey Beal and the team for being part of our Monday shows each and every week. All right, Beck, how about a little take it or leave it?
All righty, first one here. Deion Sanders reportedly told the Colorado marching band that it can't play the fight song after his son Shadur scores or throws a touchdown pass, so the stadium can play his rap song instead. Also like to mention that they got absolutely manhandled by Nebraska, who might be back, we'll see, but take it or leave it.
I mean, I'll leave it. It's there's too much of that. That on its face is not a big deal. Like, it's just not that big a deal, but there's just too much of it. There's too much of, I'm banning the reporter because he said this. I'm telling the band not to play because I need my son's song to play. There's too much individualism and too much selfishness is probably not the right word, but there's too much, and they're not good, and they're not going to get better because Shadur and Travis Hunter leave. It's every week there's a story like this, and I commend Colorado for taking the shot here because it was the right thing to do to try to infuse some life into a sleeping football program, but there's just too much. Deion doesn't get it. He doesn't get it.
Yep, I agree. Moving on, another coach who always says some interesting things in the media. Mike Gundy was asked about having a Division II transfer step in for his starting linebacker and said, "Do you want me to go back into coach talk or do you want the truth?" He was very inexpensive. The number of players that we go after that were ready to play at this level, we can't afford. Gundy is the best soundbite in sports. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave that. I think if we're just going all sports, I'm probably going to go close to Charles Barkley there.
Well, I mean,
active
and coach or player.
I mean, Gundy's pretty up there. There's no doubt. If you're looking at Twitter, Lane Kiffin's up there.
Yeah,
He's not necessarily as good as soundbite. So I'd have to give that some thought. Best soundbite in all of sports.
Not easy.
Kevin Durant's got some hot soundbites.
Yeah.
But he's up there. He's pretty. I mean, he says stuff that just doesn't need to be said. Like, you don't need to say
he's inexpensive.
You don't need to say he's inexpensive. You don't need to say that you thousands of times have had 3 or 4 beers and driven home, like he did after his player got a DWI and he didn't suspend him. Like, just keep that one to yourself. It doesn't need to be out there in the ether.
Next one here. Washington Commanders released former LSU kicker Cade York after he missed 2 kicks on Sunday. This, of course, after he struggled pretty mightily with the Browns over a few years. His career is over. Take it or leave it.
I'll leave it. Kickers float around and get tryouts. He's not the last guy to miss 2 in a day, and then they'll bring a bunch of guys in for tryouts. I think that'll be the case, but it's tenuous at this point. Cade York's probably the kicker I've had the most confidence in over my time at LSU.
Yeah.
I thought he was sensational here in Baton Rouge, maybe the best kicker in program history, and that's a really good gig if you can get it. If you can Justin Tucker or Adam Vinatieri or Gary Anderson or Morton Anderson, you're talking about 15, 17 years of service. You're talking about an incredible pension, and you're talking about not taking the wear and tear that everybody else is taking in an NFL season. But by the same token, you're always 4 hours from losing your job.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily quite the same for middle linebackers in that way. So I'm bummed for Cade. Hopefully he catches on somewhere else. But yeah, you can't miss kicks. There are guys that can make kicks. They'll bring the next guy in on Tuesday to try out. So you gotta make them.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's one of those weird things where some guys just for some reason can't figure it out. And as a kicker, it's not like it's anything different than what he did in college.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. For some reason, he hasn't found it. Maybe if he gets another chance, maybe he will. We'll see. But next one here, Gonzaga has named longtime assistant Brian Michelson the coach in waiting. Take it or leave it.
Leave it.
I don't understand.
What if he takes the job at UCLA?
Yeah, it's not like he's committing. He's like, I can't take a job somewhere else.
He's not leaving. Mark Hughes not going anywhere. It's like when Texas announced Muschamp as a coach in waiting, and then he left. He went to Florida, and this just is not necessary. You don't have to do this. And for Gonzaga, I realize that's a little bit of a different animal than any other college basketball program because you're so very much a mid-major, but you're always relevant nationally because of Mark Few. But I still feel like you should try to take a big swing and go get a coach if Mark Few decides to retire. Like, and then people say, well, he's earned the right to pick his successor. Really? Like, I don't know about that. I think the athletic director should pick the successor. But that's what Duke did the same thing. North Carolina did the same. Everybody's doing the same thing. Feels like that's not the way that I would go. But, Mike Martin decided to choose his successor, and his son drove Florida State baseball into the ground. It took Link Jarrett 2 seconds to get him back to being one of the best teams in the country. So I don't like that plan. I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think they should.
Yeah, I agree with you. I will say, though, that maybe they saw the pretty solid success that Duke and UNC have had since doing that. Maybe they thought maybe we can try to replicate that. But, yeah, it's still pretty weird to do that because it's not like you can't just go take another job somewhere. Last one here, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets will win in San Francisco tonight. Take it or leave it.
I will take it. I think the Jets go on the road.
As long as he doesn't get hurt in the first series again. That's pretty.
The Twitter streets were going nuts last year for that. I mean, Greenberg was having a watch party at his house, had a bunch of people over to sleep over, and he's just crying.
Horrible scenes.
It's just a tough spot there. But yeah, I like the Jets. I think they're going to be good this year, and I think they're going to go to San Francisco and win tonight. Look, the Saints are the NFC favorite, so
obviously,
it's no big deal.
I mean, do you see how many points they scored?
They scored a lot, and they didn't give up very many, so that's awesome. We talked about that game earlier on the show today. If you missed any of the show, you can always catch it on demand, 1045ESPN.com's on-demand tab, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google. Wherever you find your sound, you can always find us. Just search Hunt Palmer Show. Like, subscribe, rate, and review. We certainly do appreciate it. Spent the first 30 minutes today talking about LSU's game over Nichols and then what LSU's having to deal with Jacobian Guillory being out for the season, which Brian Kelly confirmed today in his media availability. If you missed any of our LSU conversation, you can always find it on YouTube at Hunt on LSU. Saints roll. I talked about it at 1:30. You can find that on YouTube at Hunt on Saints. SEC picks against the spread, just 4-8 this past week. Didn't work out, just laying a bajillion points. Who could have seen that coming? But that was the top of the show, the second hour. Denton Day was with us at 2:30 going over the national college football headlines. We got a lot to talk about the rest of the week. Got a hurricane that's coming in. LSU's got some plans for that, and certainly getting ready for LSU and South Carolina. That's going to do it for us. Matt's going to drive you home on After Further Review coming up next. Have a great Monday. We're back tomorrow on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
There's nothing chill about a hot, sweaty line. Unless you add Mountain Cold Refreshment.